We interrupt this feed to bring you news about the climate. This is Josh Fox. I have to address something, and it's disturbing. It's not good news. It means, I think, that the fracking wars are starting all over again. There's a couple of shots across the bow that have just happened that I must address, and they're very disturbing. One in the United States and one in the UK. In the United States, Barack Obama, after nearly a decade of not saying the word, has finally said the F word, fracking. And it wasn't good. Ironically, Obama finally said the word fracking at a climate change event at Leonardo DiCaprio's film on climate change, which I haven't seen, so I can't recommend it or not recommend it yet. Although I know Leo's efforts on climate change have been fantastic and laudable. He has a climate change film coming out. They did it at the White House. Obama was on the panel. Obama's in the film. And Obama used this as an opportunity to promote fracking. Now, most of us know that fracked gas is the worst fuel that we can possibly develop in terms of climate change. Now, the reason is when we burn fracked gas, natural gas, you get carbon dioxide, that's a greenhouse gas, but added to that, the whole system of natural gas delivery and drilling and burning leaks an enormous amount of that fracked gas, that natural gas, into the atmosphere. That's methane, fracked gas, natural gas, same things. I like to call it fracked gas because almost all the methane that we generate in the United States today is fracked. That is incredibly potent as a greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. So it leaks into the atmosphere at huge rates, at between 3 and 10% is what a lot of the estimates are. And that fracked gas is 100 times, 80 to 100 times more potent than CO2 is in the atmosphere. That means when you add up all the greenhouse gases, the CO2 and the methane from the fracked gas, it's actually worse than coal, which was previously thought as our worst climate change fuel. So instead of actually saying, oh yeah, fracked gas is the worst one, we can't develop it, which is what the science says, Obama comes out during this climate change event with Leonardo DiCaprio and many of the environmental world in the House in Washington, D.C. and says, oh, well, we'll use fracking. Fracking is better for the climate. Now, this isn't true. This is a lie that was perpetrated by the natural gas industry to get them in with D.C., with Washington, and with many of the big greens. And it is a lie that has been disproven over and over again. And Obama is out there saying that the worst fuel for climate change is actually the next step that we have to develop if we want to fight climate change. And he does it, well, I'll show you what he does. Here it is.
Think about coal. We've significantly reduced the amount of power that we're generating from coal, and it's going to continue to go down. Well, number one, coal miners feel like they've been battered. And they often blame me and my tree hugger friends for having created real economic problems in places like West Virginia or parts of Kentucky or parts of my home state of Southern Illinois. Interestingly enough, one of the reasons why we've seen a significant reduction of coal usage in the United States is not because of our regulations. It's been because natural gas got really cheap as a consequence of fracking. Now, there are a lot of environmentalists who absolutely object to fracking because their attitude is sometimes it's done really sloppy and releases methane that is even a worse greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. It leaks into people's water supplies and aquifers, and when done improperly can really harm a lot of people. And their attitude is we got to leave that stuff in the ground if we're going to solve climate change. And I get all that. On the other hand, the fact that we're transitioning from coal to natural gas means less greenhouse gases.
So what's wrong with this? Well, obviously, as I just said, he says that we have to accept fracking. And he does it in this way that sounds so reasonable. A lot of people in their lives just don't want to be extreme. Like, extremes are bad. Don't ban fracking. That's too extreme. Don't go whole hog and frack everything. That's too extreme. Now, I understand that. Like, that's logical. A lot of people want to be, in the rational middle. So Obama is saying that the rational middle is fracking. But this isn't true, because the science has disproven this again and again. We cannot fix the leakage problem and still have frack gas be affordable. We cannot fix it without a major overhaul of all of the frack gas infrastructures, because the fracking fields themselves spew methane into the atmosphere. The pipelines and wellheads leak. The compressor stations and weigh stations, those leak frack gas. The delivery systems in our major cities leak. New York leaks by 2%, Philadelphia by 3%, Boston 4%, Washington, D.C. 5%. So all of the gas that's going into Washington, D.C., 5% of that gas is not actually making it to your stove or your heaters or your boilers or whatever it is. It's leaking into the atmosphere directly as methane. This is a huge percentage of leakage. So it means that frack gas is the worst fuel for climate change, period. End of story. We know that. In order to fix that problem, we'd have to overhaul every single pipeline and every single interchange in all of the United States, a cost of trillions and trillions of dollars. At that point, you might say, well, since fracking also contaminates water and damages public health and pollutes our air and brings all these chemicals into our atmosphere, into our environment, to our lives that are inextricable from the soil and the water, maybe we should just go with a different system. Which is what actually people who understand climate change are calling for, and they're calling for it, and they're screaming for it, and they're calling for it until they're blue in the face. A recent study from Oil Change International, reported on by Bill McKibben for the New Republic, mentions this and says, listen, we cannot develop any more fossil fuels. If we want to stop climate change at any kind of reasonable level, if we want to stop it at 1.5 degrees, which is the aspiration of the Paris Climate Agreement signed by the Obama administration, we absolutely cannot develop any more fossil fuel infrastructure. No more fossil fuel power plants, no more fossil fuel pipelines, no more compressor stations, no more frack gas fields, no more offshore drilling, no more none of that. Or else our major cities go underwater. Or else we suffer incredible drought and severe storms. And I speak to you about this on Thursday evening, and Governor Rick Scott of Florida, a climate change denier, is now calling for 1.5 million people to be evacuated from Florida. You know, these things, it cannot possibly get more ironic. It cannot possibly get more disappointing, because Barack Obama is now pushing on us, as is the rest of the Democratic establishment. Hillary Clinton, a lot of the establishment Dems are pushing on us a new system of frack gas power for the rest of the United States for the next 4 decades. They are proposing 300 new frack gas power plants for the United States, 42 of them in Pennsylvania alone, that would last 30 to 40 more years. We can't build any of them if we want to stop climate change. No new pipelines like the Dakota Access Pipeline that people are fighting in Standing Rock, like the Constitution Pipeline and the Ned Pipeline, which we defeated in New England. But where there are pipelines crisscrossing everywhere, everyone's fighting a pipeline. Why? Because of this plan for 300 new frack gas power plants that's being promoted by the establishment Dems, that we absolutely cannot let this kind of language from Obama stand. So I'm calling upon, you know, the big greens, NRDC, Sierra Club, Environmental Working Group, EDF, Environmental Defense Fund, all of them, Food and Water Watch, please vigorously and roundly condemn these statements by Barack Obama. They are a lie. They are scientifically incorrect, and they will promote the worst fuel that we can promote for climate change according to science, which is frack gas. And I'm calling upon the fracking movements and the climate movements to come together and fight this off. We saw this huge groundswell of support during the Bernie Sanders campaign, where the progressive wing of the Democratic Party rallied and came together all across the country and said, no more fracking. We don't want any more fracking. We want real action on climate change, period. That's what we need. I need the producers of the film, Leonardo DiCaprio, Fisher Stevens, to come out and speak against these statements. We need this to be shut down right away, because what's really, really worrisome to me is, although we have some great down-ballot candidates right now for the Democrats, and the Democratic platform itself, which I helped write, says we don't want to incentivize frack gas power plants in the future, and we need a price on carbon and on methane. That is currently not the position of Hillary Clinton, and we need to push against that. We need to push against the establishment Democrats. This lie that natural gas is better than coal cannot continue to be pushed by the Democrats. It is something that was created by the natural gas industry. It was bought hook, line, and sinker by this administration, and it cannot stand, and it cannot be supported by the big greens or by anybody else. We absolutely have to fight this. Don't let this kind of pro-fracking rhetoric, even from somebody like Barack Obama, who many of us like on other issues. Many of us have problems on other issues. What I'm saying is, you cannot be pro-fracking and say you're working on climate. Barack Obama, you cannot be pro-fracking and say that you're working on climate. It's absolute hypocrisy. So we have to make sure that people know that.